Founding Fathers gave the free press the protection it must have to fulfill its essential role in our democracy. The press was to serve the governed, not the governors.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle Kinney. You're watching the Mayday Network. Welcome. This is a daily dispatch by my lonesome without my partner in crime, Julie Roginski, who is out for the next couple of weeks on a wonderful vacation. We wish her safe travels. Wanted to come on this evening, on this Friday, March 20th, to share some news that I thought was actually promising. It was, dare I say, positive in a sea of muck and some really shitty news with the media the last couple of days. There is a glimmering light. So the New York Times, if you remember this a number of months back, the Pentagon basically, told the legacy media folks that were in the press pool there, you have a choice. You can either follow our rules and do what we say, or you're all going to lose your press passes. And of course, they all said no. And that's why there's a bunch of bloggers and influencers, at the Pentagon reporting on illegal activity being, executed by Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump. And of course, the New York Times sued, which they should have. They sued and they just won. Now, who knows how long this is going to last? I'm sure that this will continue to go up to the Supreme Court, which is why I played that opening scene from The Post, which Carrie Coon, if you don't know her, she's a fantastic actress, quotes one of the lines from that opinion from the Pentagon Papers when the New York Times sued the federal government back then on grounds of violation of the First Amendment. So here is the New York Times just reporting this evening, judge rules Pentagon restrictions on press are unconstitutional. A federal judge tossed part of the Pentagon's restrictions on news outlets, saying they violated the First Amendment in a lawsuit brought by the New York Times. This was reported by Eric Wemple, who is reporting from Washington. I'll go into just read some of this because I think it's important. This federal judge ruled today, Friday. This is being reported at 5:59 p.m. And it handed a victory to the New York Times, which filed suit in December. So that was just a few months ago. Judge Paul Friedman of the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia also ordered the Pentagon to restore the press passes of 7 journalists for the Times. They had surrendered those passes in October instead of signing the policy, which empowered the Pentagon to declare journalists quote unquote security risks and revoke their press passes if they engage in any conduct that the Pentagon believes threatens national security. The New York Times and the Justice Department did not immediately respond to requests for comment. Shocking. The Pentagon policy took effect in October and drew condemnations from numerous mainstream outlets for penalizing news gathering methods long protected by the First Amendment. Dozens of journalists who had press passes to the Pentagon turned them in rather than sign the new policy. It's nice to see some solidarity with journalists who report on the federal government. Of all things. The Defense Department then welcomed a new set of credentialed media members, most of them pro-Trump commentators. And I'll just interject here that one of them is Matt Gaetz. These people are unserious. A lot of them have posted on their own social media, bragging that they do not have degrees or experience in journalism at all, taking pride in that. But I mean, there's a reason why people go to journalism school. There is a reason why people have to pound the pavement for years in order to rise the ranks in journalism. A free press is crucial to a democracy. And these people are so wholly unqualified. It quite frankly sends chills up my spine. So, just continuing on here. At a March 6th hearing in the case, Judge Friedman signaled his frustration with the rules. A Justice Department lawyer representing the Defense Department, for instance, drew an animated response from the judge when he argued that journalists don't have First Amendment protections when they solicit the quote, disclosure of unauthorized information. Reading on. This is the last part. Quote, why not? Why not? Judge Friedman replied, adding that department officials can simply refuse to answer such inquiries from journalists, but there is no quote unquote, no prescription on journalists asking questions. Judge Friedman had also appeared skeptical of a provision in the policy declaring off limits certain journalistic tip requests. Though the Pentagon drew a bright line delineating prohibited tip requests from problematic ones, Judge Friedman said, quote, I don't understand that argument. I hope that the government can explain it. It is unclear whether the government will appeal the ruling, which, I mean, they're going to, of course they are. In the March 6th hearing, the Justice Department asked that the court send the rules back to the Defense Department for refining so that the Pentagon could, quote, rehabilitate the policy rather than vacate the disputed provisions. This is a developing story. Check back for updates. Again, this reporting is from the New York Times. This is Eric Wimple's reporting here. So I want to go here and just remind people that this story was just reported on the 11th. 9 days ago. This was an exclusive with the Washington Post, that the Pentagon was banning press photographers from the press pool at the Defense Department at the Pentagon over unflattering Hegseth photos. This man in this photograph right here, if you're watching, not listening, is the most fragile, insecure, chest-thumping princess. All of these people are perpetual victims. They care more about what they look like online and in the papers than the actual security of our nation, our democracy, or our lives, quite frankly. These people are, for however you feel about what's going on in Iran, it's illegal. And most of the country does not support this specifically, and especially after they just asked for another $200 billion from the federal government to continue funding this. It's wild. But, you know, I felt it was important to come on and just shine a little light on this good news today, because there has been so much bad news. I don't know if you all saw this today. This is just story 4 o'clock today. CBS News Radio, after 100 years of broadcasting, shut down all of their stations. This was reported by CBS News today. They announced Friday that CBS News Radio will be shutting down this spring after nearly 100 years of broadcasting. The company cited challenging economic realities and a shift into radio programming strategies as reasons behind the decision. And all of this, by the way, the 700 affiliated stations with CBS News Radio will end on May 22nd. This is a nail in the coffin, if there wasn't one already, for CBS News. It's atrocious. And then in addition to that, there was this, also reported just yesterday. Let me just read this here. U.S. approves $6.2 billion with a B, merger, and this is set to reshape local TV. And I just want to load in the rest of this story here because, you know, if you guys remember, I think a number of years back, this must have been, it must have been around 2016. Sinclair, as we all know, bought up a ton of local news stations around the country. Most people in this country get their news from local stations. They tune into their local news stations probably more than anything else. And if you have one company or corporation controlling the message in all of these smaller markets around the country, and that person or that entity happens to have a very specific ideology or agenda, we're in trouble. And that was 10 years ago, and here we are. So here's the rest of the story, reported by Scott Nover at the Washington Post. So Nexstar, the largest owner of TV stations in the United States, won regulatory approval to buy rival Tegna, I hope I'm saying that right, Tegna on Thursday in a $6.2 billion deal that promises to reshape the landscape for local television and news coverage. The Justice Department and the FCC Commission, the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, each gave a green light to the deal. FCC Chairman Brendan Carr, who is in his 40s, just want to point that out as usual. The man is in his 40s. Allowed the deal to proceed by waiving a cap that has historically barred station owners from expanding to reach more than 39% of American households. Nexstar previously said the deal would give it 265 stations across the country, reaching 80% of households. 80%. This is a monopoly. We are supposedly in this country supposed to have laws that prevent these things from happening. But when you have a very corrupt administration with a very corrupt FCC chair, Brendan Carr, who just does anything Daddy says. And listen, I don't know who owns Nexstar. I'm sure this would be very easy to find out. If I had Julie here, I would spend some time just Googling this, but, follow the money. I mean, this is all about money. This is about power. This is about ideology. And this on the same day, by the way, that Jim Acosta, our friend Jim Acosta, wonderful Jim Acosta, testified in Congress. And I wish there was a better clip of this where you could hear him a little bit better, that he was mic'd. So the audio is from the room itself. But I do want to play this because he did say the breaking news is that the news is broken. And I thought that was so powerful, especially coming from Jim Acosta, who was essentially let go from CNN, who is a career journalist, a good person, a good man, who cares deeply about this country, the son of an immigrant. He is the example that should be an American journalist, telling the truth, standing up to someone like Donald Trump, telling truth to power. So I'm going to go ahead and play this clip. This is today. This is Jim Acosta.
Bureaus that are located around the world. Look what Jeff Bezos has done with the Washington Post, closing bureaus and offices and places around the world that are now very important to the news that we're getting today. And the other, I think, more disturbing aspect of this is that you basically have partisan hacks running CBS News. And they, as I said earlier in my comments, shelved a piece on 60 Minutes about the notorious Seacon prison. And we all remember those images of Secretary Kristi Noem standing in front of those cages filled with human beings. Some of them were migrants who were wrongfully detained by this administration and treated like animals. And 60 Minutes, I know that some of the people who put that piece together, they were told that they couldn't air that story because they had to find administration officials to comment. Those administration officials are available to comment at any given moment. And they eventually put that piece on the air. But imagine those kinds of editorial decisions moving over to CNN, the nation's 24-hour news network. Those kinds of editorial decisions will send a chilling effect throughout that news organization. And Senator, I don't have to explain to you what the effect of that might be. We'll get into the business of having journalists self-editing, self-censoring programs saying, well, we better pull our punches here. We don't want to get in trouble with the bosses. We don't want to lose our jobs. And that affects the news and information that everybody receives today. And so, there's a lot of talk of busting up big tech. I think we're going to have to start having a conversation about busting up big media. because this is not America, what we're witnessing right now. This is very close to what is going on in Russia and Hungary and other authoritarian countries where they have successfully consolidated their news media. And it's the kind of news that the government wants you to hear and see. I tell the story all the time.
So Jim says that this is not America. I mean, sadly, it is America, but what is happening, is in opposition to the values and the democratic ideology that this country was founded on. And we're always trying to. We're a work in progress, but we have regressed. I think that the ranking of American democracy was something. There was a new data point that came out in the last few days, like 54th or something like that, and it's the fastest decline that this country has ever experienced. For that reason, and for many others, it's scary, and he's exactly right about Hungary and Russia. There is a reason why, when there was a CPAC held in Texas, that Viktor Orban was a guest of honor. He walked out on stage and said a lot of really awful, you can't even say controversial, they're just horrifying statements. And then they held another CPAC in Budapest. And what is part of the Orban playbook was, number one, to consolidate the media and control it. And you can do that with not only the levers of power through your administration and your government, but also with your richest pals, oligarchs, people like the Ellisons, who are gobbling up all of the legacy media that is left. And like the tech overlords, which is basically, stacking the algorithm against us. And, I was actually thinking about this last night. About the algorithm, because Emily in your phone, if you don't follow her, she's a great Substack, and she wrote a really good, great article on her Substack. Go check it out, about how the left doesn't invest in independent media and influencers the same way that the right does, if at all. It's really the left in general, and this is the investor and donor space as well as the electeds, don't see really the value yet. They're too scared. And so therefore we are light years behind, because what happened in the 20th century is a lot of conservatives felt that they were on the outside looking in to media as a whole. And so they said, well, we're going to build our own thing. And it started with talk radio, Fox News, and then moved into the digital space in the 21st century. And that is why, the left sort of still on this path of legacy media is the most important. I need to do, I'm an elected official. I need to get my hit on CNN. I need to do MSNBC. I need to do all the Sunday shows, not realizing or really appreciating yet that you're going to get a much bigger audience if you go on a podcast, or if you go to, a content creator and do something with them. Now there's other things that can be discussed about disclosure and things like that, which I think are important on either side. It's unfortunately one of the things that I will agree with Marjorie Taylor Greene on. She's talked about this. However, we are light years behind. We're getting our asses kicked. And when I say about the algorithm, these tech companies are making sure that these messages and communications that are either going to incite you, or they're going to radicalize you, or keep you in an echo chamber, they're just feeding you the same stuff over and over and over again. And they're making sure that the algorithm is stacked against the opposition. So people like you and me, or all of you that are watching, I was thinking about this last night. I was like, there's this feeling of helplessness in the air. And I'm sure you guys are feeling it too. Please write me in the chat, because I'd love to know how you guys are feeling. It's been feeling pretty shitty. It's almost like the algorithm is stacked to make sure that we feel alone, that we feel that we are all isolated and on an island. Because my frustration really has been growing about the lack of protesting, the lack of pushback, like in the physical form, um, in the streets. And I know it's easier said than done, but like, this is where the staggered breathing, the choir staggered breathing comes into play, right? Not everybody can be everywhere all the time, so we have to take turns. And I've been really frustrated. I was like, what is this indivisible? Indivisible is great, but like this no king stuff, we're going to do this once every 6 months. That's not enough. It's not even close. Not even close. And so, you have that. You have a lack of sort of central leadership or people to look to. Like, there's no really big leader in this moment, sort of leading the people, inspiring the people while all of this horrible shit's happening. And this algorithm that's happening online is designed to keep us down. And I think that we have to remind each other, remind ourselves that there are more of us. There are more of us in this country that did not choose this, that did. And, mind you, some of those people also didn't vote, but even the ones that didn't vote didn't choose this, right? They didn't participate, and that's a whole nother discussion. But the vast majority of eligible voters in this country did not vote for Donald Trump. We need to be out in the streets every single day. And, the showing up physically is very, very important, but so is the, liking, sharing content online. If there's any creators that you follow or podcasts or videos on Instagram, or I'm not on TikTok anymore. I deleted my account. Whatever the case may be, when you share, it helps get that message out. It helps the algorithm, right? So like-minded people or people who might have a shared interest might end up seeing that video because you liked it or you shared it or you reposted it. And that's when you see Donald Trump sitting at a table with all of the tech overlords like Tim Cook, wretched man, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, who someone just reminded me in the chat, just blew through $82 billion for his metaverse, which is just astounding, $82 billion. It's hard to find the words in this moment. I'm not an expert. I'm not a journalist. I'm not, I'm just another person just like the rest of you, just trying to wade through all of this and make sense of it. But we have so many things going on right now with public health, with our national security, with the institutions that have held up our democracy for 250 years, for the blatant corruption happening inside the Trump administration. And it's just beyond corruption, because I feel like corruption is a word that sort of gets thrown around, and corrupt. What does it even mean to people? It's on a spectrum, but it is egregious to the point of, and I remind people of this and myself all the time, Donald Trump doesn't do anything that doesn't somehow benefit him. And that, Kristi Noem's a perfect example here, right? He put her in charge. She was doing all kinds of crazy stuff that she was benefiting from, that Corey Lewandowski was benefiting from, but Donald Trump wasn't. And that was sort of the line for him. So, all of this is benefiting him. All of the horrible things that we're seeing, the chemicals being thrown back into our water, the, demolition of the windmills, his obsession with windmills, allowing the fossil fuel industry to continue polluting our air and water in this country, these data centers that are being set up that are completely ruining entire communities, not to mention sucking towns dry of their water supply. The damage that this man has done in a matter of a year, will take generations to undo. And that is why in this environment, when we're losing media, I mean, it's CBS might as well just be gone. We truly cannot trust anything that's coming out of that organization anymore. I hate to say it, that MS Now really is the only cable news network that has any interest in reporting truth. And obviously, yes, it's a lot of punditry on MS Now. There's, but any semblance of reporting. And they just had a huge shakeup as well. I'm sure you guys saw there's the shakeup from Morning Joe onward to the 11th hour, which I think is going to be hosted by Ali Velshi now. Who knows? I mean, I'm sure they have their reasons why they did all this. But this is another reason, though, I think, and I bring all this up because it's all related, right? This is all so heavy and it's so much that when we get the wins, we have to really take them in and we really have to sit in it for a second. Because it's not often you see something like this, a federal judge ruling against the Pentagon, against the Defense Department, against Pete Hegseth, Princess Pete. And we are reminded again of the history and that the scene that I played in the beginning, the Supreme Court upholding newspapers on publication of the Pentagon report. And that was a 6-3 ruling. And here's just, it was a very long opinion, obviously, but the part that she reads out: in the First Amendment, the founding fathers gave the free press the protection it must have to fulfill its essential role in our democracy. The press was to serve the governed, not the governors. And that is why this free press is such a crucial part of a functioning democracy, because you have to have people and organizations holding these folks accountable and informing the public about what's actually happening. And right now, it's really hard to get the truth to people because we're living in almost a post-truth America where you have to question everything that you read, and even question the things that you see. Is it real? Is it AI? I mean, I think I saw something yesterday on Instagram and I had to send it to Julie. I was like, is this real? I can't even tell anymore. And I feel like I have a pretty good eye for that stuff. That shit's getting better. But we have to continue to move forward and take these wins. Now, again, it says in the Washington Post article that it's unclear whether or not the Justice Department will come back and try to continue on, which I'm sure they will, and it will probably end up in front of the Supreme Court. And in front of this Supreme Court, hard to say, because they have an agenda as well, because they have all been bought and paid for, with an exception of 3. These are scary times. And with the Washington Post even owned by an oligarch now, S.E. Cupp, a conservative pundit, I don't entirely remember what her background is. I just know who she is from CNN and stuff. I follow her on Instagram, and she said something really great. And it was in response to this Nexstar news about the merger. And she said, a lot of wealthy people ask her all the time, like, how can I help? What can I do? And she's like, I often say, and I get pushback from this, is like, your millions of dollars, while you feel like you're doing something, giving to candidates or PACs or races or whatever the case may be. But if you have that kind of money, you need to be investing in independent media, local news, local newspapers. Buy a local news station. Start a local news station. Go start a local newspaper. It's not a profit center. I think we all know this, right? It's a dying It's a dying medium. But if you've got the money, this is what I said this before. This is what we are lacking. We're lacking on the left. And listen, I used to run a super PAC. And before that, I worked at a super PAC with former Republicans. And their mindset was completely different than the Democrats that I've worked with. And that is that Republicans tend to throw money at things with, it could be very little return on investment, zero return on investment, or even negative return on investment. It doesn't matter. They will throw spaghetti at the wall until it sticks. And they will do it as much and for as long as they can until they win. And that is how they think. But a lot of times with Democratic donors, they want to see numbers, they want to see a PowerPoint presentation, they want to do that, and they're scared, and I don't know, and is a lot of hemming and hawing. And then there comes like this purity sort of stuff on the left too. And it's like, well, why are these people making money to be, content creators and to spread message? There's a lot of that too. People got to pay their bills. And when people are paid well, they're less stressed out. They're able to focus on what it is that they need to do. Some people say, I don't want people, it's not that I don't want people to get paid. I just want, disclosure. Okay, fine. But people need to make money. My God, there was a company funneling money from Russia, paying Tim Pool. These are right-wing podcasters, and Benny Johnson. I think there was a third person, $400,000 a month. $400,000 a month. These people are crazy rich doing this. Charlie Kirk got a very small investment from someone to start TPUSA, and look what happened. But somebody just said, yeah, here you go, kid, and wrote him a check. Not for like a huge, like enormous amount, but enough to get him started. And lo and behold, and it's frustrating. It's frustrating to have been on the, the PAC side and now in the independent media side, and just seeing the lack of, it's not even support. It's like the lack of investment in seeing the value long-term, long game stuff. This is long game stuff. And, I was back and forth with a creator with a very big following this morning. We were messaging on Instagram, and she was saying that the local officials, even in her state where she lived, she's like, I can't even get them to work with me. Like, they just won't do it. And a lot of times you have elected officials, asking creators to fly from wherever it is that they live to some rally in North Carolina or something. And they're either like footing the bill and then having to wait to get reimbursed, or like going and like having to, stay into they're doing it at cost to themselves. It's not like a comfortable sort of thing to be doing. It's disruptive, but they do it because they know how important it is. And I just wish that there was more of an appreciation or a willingness to invest in these things, because we do get wins. We are getting wins, but New York Times is one of the last newspapers left. It's privately owned. We've got the New York Times pitch bot, right? They missed the mark a lot, but they're doing the right thing here. And I think that's important. And we have to appreciate that part of it. So if you're out there and you know somebody with a whole lot of money, I'm not even saying, yes, please, we want people to help Mayday, but, help other people in independent media, invest. And like S.E. Cupp said, go buy a newspaper, go start a newspaper, go start a local news station, whatever it takes. There are people with crazy amounts of money that are throwing their money at the wrong things. We have to think long game here. We have to think here about generationally getting out of this, not next year or 2 years from now. Well, that is important. It's the first couple of steps out of the hole. And that's if we can even get there. So this is a win. This is good. keep this in mind. We'll try to keep you updated here on this news. There's a lot of other stuff going on. I'm going to try to go live this weekend again. You might get sick of seeing me, but you're looking at it, kids. I will be back tomorrow morning for Saturdays for Sanity. I have not scheduled yet, but if you are subscribed, which I hope you will all do, you'll get a notification when I schedule that. That'll be at 10 a.m. Eastern tomorrow. TBD on who's going to be joining me. I've asked a couple people. We're going to see what happens. And TBD if it'll happen the following weekend as well. I'm actually going to be out of town at a wedding, so the Wi-Fi situation could be iffy. I just want to answer a couple questions here. John Winkler 1, feeling better, Michelle? Yes, I am. I unfortunately digested, or maybe not, something over the weekend that didn't quite agree with me. So it took a few days, was not feeling well at all. And somebody else asked about my hat. This is just the nearest hat to me when I decided to go live, and I just threw it on. This is the Rosenoff hat from Heated Rivalry, which, by the way, I went to go see Heated Rivalry, the musical parody in New York on Wednesday night with my friend Craig. If you watch the Illegals podcast, Craig's one of my best friends. We went, and it was so camp, and it was so, like, I haven't laughed that hard in so long. It was like so campy and funny. If you live in Brooklyn, or you want to go to Brooklyn, it's moving to Brooklyn, I believe, at the Bella House after that. So go check that out. It was really funny. I think that's it. If anybody else has any questions, I'm here for a second. Going once, going twice. As I take a swig of water, because I've just talked for 36 minutes straight. I believe that's it, kids. Thank you all so much for being here this evening. Please take care of yourselves, check in on each other, and we'll see you back here on the Mayday Network at 10 a.m. Sorry, one more question from John Winkler 1 again. Have you heard from Julie? Yes, I have. She is somewhere over the Pacific Ocean right now. She's almost there. And how is my men's bracket? Someone asked. Joe and I will go live again to talk about, the first round. I actually don't have a bracket. I didn't do one. It's like sad for me because Syracuse is so bad. I don't know how Joe's bracket is doing, so I'll have to ask him. I thought Siena was gonna squeeze Duke to the point of loss yesterday. They came so close, but as you guys know, or maybe you don't, Jerry McNamara, who is a former classmate, I don't know him, but he was a former classmate of mine when we won the national championship at Syracuse. Then went on to be an assistant coach at Syracuse for 15 years. They didn't hire him when Jim Boeheim left, so he went to Siena, which is a smaller college upstate, and he has taken this program from very losing. I think they were like 4-28 to like going to the tournament, which is really, really, really amazing. And he has he doesn't have a deep bench. And so he had to run his starting lineup the whole game. And I think had he had a little bit of a deeper bench, they probably could have pulled it out against Duke. He outcoached. Jerry McNamara just outcoached them. And they were tired by the end of the game, and he did the right thing. And, Syracuse is looking for a new coach. And so all I got to say is, come on, bring Jerry home. Scranton, PA. Jerry McNamara, we love him. And everyone who hates High Point in the chat, I'm very sorry. Sorry about that. I happened to watch that game. And Kevin Cox said, did you see that Punch has a girlfriend? I did. I sent that to Julie last night, and she was like, oh my God, stop it. So I know that she's gonna go see Punch. And his little girlfriend, who apparently, her fur is very similar in color to his little plush toy that he was dragging around. So it's just like the sweetest thing ever. And see, I can't believe High Point got ahead of UNC. Totally. Chuck Norris died. He did. Not that it matters, but he was a MAGA person, total MAGA person. And I don't know if you guys used to watch Conan O'Brien back in the day. I should have queued. Maybe I'll play this tomorrow morning. Conan O'Brien used to do this thing where I guess like NBC, because he was on NBC at the time, um, they got the rights to all the Walker Texas Ranger shows or something. So he had access to all of this library to show, and so he had this lever next to his desk, and he would like do this, and they would play one, and it was always the most ridiculous scene. Go on YouTube and look it up. Conan O'Brien, Walker Texas Ranger. It is hysterical. It's so funny. You kind of can't believe that a show this bad was on television. Let's see, what's her name? The little Punch's little monkey girlfriend. I don't know. I don't know what her name is, but good for her. Let's see. I'm looking to see if there's any more questions here. I learned today that Chuck Norris actually taught acting class. I was like, WTF, I know. Listen, those who can't teach, I guess. I don't know. Maybe he was a great teacher. I don't know. I'd forgotten about the lever on Conan. So funny. So like, it's the first thing that crossed my mind. When I saw Chuck Norris died, I was like, oh. And then I thought of Conan and the lever. It's hysterical. I'll try to play it tomorrow. I'll probably get a copyright strike on it, but we'll try. We'll try and see what happens. I guess that's it for now, kids. I don't know. I've got two people saying, one person saying the girlfriend's name is Judy. Another person saying that her name is Spank. I cannot confirm nor deny that either of these are accurate. But that is it. So guys, for real, I'm going to go now. I was going to go figure skating tonight in the park, but unfortunately it is bad weather in New York this evening, so that is not going to happen. So I will keep my eye on the news. If anything else comes on, I'll be back this evening. Hopefully not, but definitely tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Eastern with TBD. I'm not sure yet. Everybody else, take care of yourselves. Check in on each other, and we'll see you all tomorrow.